Today, I want to talk more about developing for relativity. And what I want to talk about today is some of the considerations or challenges or difficulties that either me or others have faced when trying to develop their application for relativity. We'll talk about technical and non-technical aspects in this video. So let's put some kind of text on the screen for a thumbnail. I'll step to the side, text on the side, click. We got a thumbnail. And now we can talk about it. So I want to talk about some of the problems and wouldn't want to call it downsides, right? Just difficulties and obstacles you may face when developing your application in relativity. Very important. I don't want you guys to think that these are all sort of problems that or things the reasons to avoid developing for relativity. They're not, right? Think of you go into a Ninja Warrior obstacle course. Well, you want to know what kind of obstacles going to be there so you could prepare for them physically. Well, this is kind of the same deal. You know, you decided to write an application that's going to be in relativity, and you want to know what kind of obstacles you're going to be facing. So now you need to prepare mentally for them to make sure you know how to overcome and, well, in general, you are prepared for them. So that's what the video is about. It's about knowing what the path is and what challenges you will face. So let's jump into it and stop talking and doing all the introductory stuff. All right. So the first problem that most people get and developers see is actually knowing relativity. Relativity is a complicated application. It's there's a lot going on. There are a lot of modules, and people have difficulty learning relativity. There are like thick manuals, right? Certifications, all kinds of programs. And if you want to be effective at developing for relativity, you need to learn relativity. So that's a big obstacle, and people tend to skip it and just say, I'll just stick it somewhere, or they'll ask someone else, like, we're in relativity, should I just implement? And they kind of look it up, how to implement the feature. Oh, I'll just put it on the bottom right corner next to the icons. But they don't know why they're doing it. They don't know if it's a good idea. They rely on somebody's feedback. So I think that's really important thing to do, is to learn relativity, understand how users are using it so that you're effective at programming for it, and you know that you create features that are actually going to be useful and not just, you know, a checkbox item like, oh, I did it, but does it work? Well, I don't know. So that's item number one. Now, the next difficulty or challenge you may have is learning APIs. Now, APIs are not difficult. I would consider myself like a medium level programmer. If you're a beginner, of course, you may have difficulty figuring things out, you know, learning how to call different things and so on. But generally, API is not bad. I would not say it's terribly complicated, but that's something you'll have to learn, which kind of obvious, right? You're programming against that API, so you have to learn it. But the real thing about API is they're in change. As of March 2021, Relativity is deprecating our SAPI. They building new APIs, and things are in constant change. It's not an established set of APIs that's been out there for years and people have been using it. This is in progress work, and it's, you know, at this point it's pretty good, it's stable, you know, you can get done what you need done, but just keep in mind it is improving, evolving, and changing. And same thing with documentation. When you're going to be reading documentation, you know, it's there, it's okay, but there are times where it could be better, things could be explained better. I found some examples that were either incomplete. I found examples that used deprecated RSAPI where the page wasn't marked that things are deprecated. So there are things like that where documentation is changing with API. So the good thing about it is Relativity is working on it, and they working on improving and changing and making it better. And they even made that giant move to dump all the old API, which is something very admirable for, you know, somebody to do that, to make such a big change and just say, okay, we didn't do it the right way in the beginning, here's how we're going to do it, this is the right way, we're moving forward with this. All right. The next thing I have about APIs is I feel like there are too many different APIs, right? You work with this API, you work with that, and the issue I have is sometimes in certain API will lead you down a path where you think everything is good, and only at the end you're gonna hit like a dead end and it's like get stuck. So example of that, I was using, I believe, file API, and I'm accessing my, a native file, right? So I wrote my application, user interface, and we go here, we go there. Okay, we get the native file, we can download that. Next, we're gonna access image. Okay, we're accessing images, everything's great. Now we get into production images. Okay, I'm pulling my production images. Now I can do this, and then I go, wait a minute. Same document could be produced multiple times. How come I don't know which image is in which production? And then I contact support and they say, oh yeah, you can't know with this API. So I was like 99% there, and I hit that roadblock all the way at the end. So I'm going like, so how do I do it? Well, you have to use a production API. Okay, so now I have to backtrack, figure out production API, get it configured with different settings, go through the whole thing, figure out the GUID for production document, and then use my file API again to pull that. As like, I mean, it feels like such a small oversight. All you have to do is just tell me which image was produced where, and that's it, and that would have been done. So something like that will happen. The other thing is you will get situations where API is missing functionalities, things that Relativity has access to, but you as a developer don't. Example of that would be I was developing on import API. I was trying to load a big bulk of metadata and text. And again, I built out everything. It's all working. It's great. Data's loading, everything okay. And then I'm like, wait a minute, how do I cancel this if the user sets up to load 500,000 documents, they change their mind, right? And I couldn't figure that out. So I called DevX. And they're like, oh yeah, import API has no cancel button. I'm like, what do you mean it has no cancel button? Your desktop client has a cancel button, right? Isn't it the same thing? It's like, well, yeah, but no. And turn out that there is no easy way to cancel your import and an import API. So you will get to things like that, and this is where DevX team is going to be super helpful. Right, I worked with them a lot. I sent them a lot of emails. I spoke with a number of people, and pretty much everyone I spoke to were really helpful. I told them what I was trying to do. I sent them a sample code, what's not working or not working how I needed to. They explained to me what I was doing wrong. Sometimes they send me sample code that does what I needed to do. And I think DevX team was great. They were great help, and you should count on working with them. Anything complicated, I am 99% sure you will need somebody on the Relativity side to assist you with either figuring something out or maybe filling in some of the gaps that lack in documentation or something like that. So count on working with DevX team. They're great. All right. Now we need to address two other problems that may come up in your company or wherever you're developing that are not technical, and they deal with getting application approved and built in Relativity. And that's kind of weird because we're talking developing in Relativity. So here's a situation I had. I was talking to somebody else who was on the vendor side, and they built an application. I forget what it was, and I asked them, like, so what did you do? How did you build it? And they said, well, we decided to build it outside of Relativity. We thought about it and decided not to build it in Relativity. We wanted to do a separate application. I'm like, well, why? You could have such a head start by building on the platform. And they said, well, we decided we don't want to be tied to Relativity, right? So vendor side is much more volatile, right? Things change quickly. And the choice they made is they said, well, we don't know if we're going to be using Relativity forever. We don't know how many years we're going to be using it for. And perhaps in a few years, we want to change to something else. And we don't want that application, we don't want to rebuild it again if we choose not to use Relativity. So that's something to consider, right? If you're in a law firm, you're probably set. If Relativity is working for you, you're going to stay with it for a long time. But on the vendor side, things are changing quicker. And that's one of the things may need to be considered before putting significant investment of time into building something. The other issue I had, again, deals with approving and investing into relativity development is, so I wanted to write an application that would have many users in a company. But some of the users are not existing relativity users. They would be like a support staff, like admin team, billing, maybe people from like a paper department, scanning, printing, and so on. I think we wanted to do a tracking system, something like that. And once we kind of started figuring out that we're going to need logins for all those people who don't currently have access to relativity, well, turned out to be we'll have to pay a monthly fee. Well, obviously we have to pay a monthly fee per user for each of those people just to having to access that one application. And once you figure, you add in like 7 to 10 people and you pay per month per user, what seemed to be a big time and money savings initially to get the application going, now turns into a pretty big expense on a monthly basis, right? So if you have users who are not current relativity users, then it may be pretty expensive to have them use relativity and create accounts for them to build an application. So anyway, those are the sort of challenges that I faced or I saw other people face when building things for relativity. I don't know if you have any additional thoughts to share with me. If you're a developer, please let me know if your project was declined, that you had like an idea and the management said, no, don't do it, or do it some other way. So let me know that. Or if there are any technical issues that you had that worth sharing with everybody, please put in the comment section below. I would like to know about it. Don't forget to follow on LinkedIn, subscribe on YouTube. I will see you next time.